Thank you for tuning in and checking out Unlucky, a memoir. My name is Kat. Everyone has a story. This one just happens to be mine. All right, where I left off last week, I just come to the realization that I probably made the best decision of my life. And the way my life is trending today, I definitely made the best decision of my life. My life is so good today, I no longer want to run away from it. And there's been a lot of things along this path that have been integral in me getting here. And this next part talks about the program I went to. It's called the New Life Program, run by the Denver Rescue Mission. And again, a huge, huge thank you to the Denver Rescue Mission for accepting me into the program and the belief that followed in the staff that helped me along this journey. So, where I left off, I just got accepted to this program. And now the nerves set in because I just committed to a 9 to 12 month program. And because of the willingness and the effort I was putting in, I was regaining a relationship with family and their support. Um, and part of me knew that if I walked away from this program, returned to use, that was all going to go away. And that was no longer going to be available to me. So there was pressure that because I didn't want to return to that feeling of absolute hopelessness, of wanting to take my life because that seemed like a better alternative than moving forward. So I had just committed to 9 to 12 months of my life being spent in a program. And I remember getting the letter saying that they would be ready. I got the approval, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. I got accepted, and they sent me a note in the shelter saying, have your stuff ready for 6 or 7 a.m. on Thursday. And I remember I couldn't make it because once I was there, I didn't know how it was going to work, when I could leave, what I could do. And I had to get a prescription filled because during my drug use, I had contracted hepatitis C. And I had just gotten approved for the medication to eradicate that from my system. So I was 30 days into a 60-day cycle on it. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to lapse because Medicaid will only approve it one time in your life. And I didn't want to screw this up. So I remember calling thinking they were going to tell me that it wasn't an option, that I had to come on Thursday. And I called and they said, that's okay. How's Monday? Or, yeah, how's Monday? So, again, like these fears and me just trying to do the next right thing and stay on the right path. But everything was working out the way it was supposed to. So I get picked up that Monday after I take care of tying up all the loose ends. And I remember just feeling fear, anxiety, and it was all just from the unknown. Going to this program, getting there, and not having much in the way of clothing or anything really. I had no money, couldn't get anything. So I show up at this program, and I remember immediately feeling like an outsider again, because I looked around and saw all these people that seemed to be clicked up, like they'd been there forever. And then I was, me and one of the people in the van were like the new people of the program. And later I come to find out that that's just a misconception. When I started talking and make myself part of that community, I realized that they'd only been here a week or two longer than me. But I needed to face some fears and put myself outside of my comfort zone and do some things that I was uncomfortable with, as far as just going and integrating myself within this community. I still, at this point, didn't go there with the best intentions. I heard Josh's voice 9 to 12 months, and I was waiting for housing, and I was going to go hide out in this program. I remember they have once a month on the first Thursday of the month. It's called a town hall meeting, where all the New Life participant residents meet in the community room, and all the staff, and we kind of go over what's been going on. And I remember Chaplain Mark up front telling us that we were so lucky to be in this program, because a lot of the opportunities that they give us and programs that they give us cost them X amount of dollars a month. And it was a pretty high number. And it was at that point that something clicked. And I decided, I'm going to take advantage of everything they have to put in front of me. When he said that some of the programs there cost X amount of dollars, in my brain, I said, I want that. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted it. I figured if they were willing to spend that much money to make it available to me, then it must be important. And I made the decision that even if I didn't need it, I wanted it anyway, because again, tools to the toolbox. And I say this all the time, you have a spare tire in your car for a reason. You hope you never need it, but it's there in case you do. So the things that I learned there, a lot of them still apply to my recovery today. And then there's others that were just a nice self-care moment, like learning how to play the guitar and getting a free guitar because there's a gentleman that volunteered his services to come in and give guitar lessons and give guitars to those who completed, I think it was 10 weeks, maybe. I forget how many weeks. But I did that. I joined up with an organization called Back on My Feet. Remember, I said when I got to Colorado, I was walking with a cane over 300 pounds and hobbled, barely moving. And this organization comes 3 times a week, and they show up at like 5:45 in the morning, and you go and you can walk, jog, run, whatever, for an hour with them. They take you out to a park down the street about a half mile away. And I started with them, started out doing, I think, a mile at first, maybe a mile and a half, and then just walking. And then I started pushing myself to walk faster, and I started getting 2.5 miles in. Then I realized that I wanted my times to improve. I wanted my distance to improve. So I started pushing myself and jogging a little bit until finally I could get up to 3.5 to 4.5 miles in that time. And I still remember they have a time mile once a month. When I first got there, in the shape I was in, I think it was about a 20-minute mile. And within 4 or 5 months, I had that time down to a 10-minute, 19-second mile, which I'm still pretty proud of. The fact that I pushed myself to that, and it wasn't for anyone else but me. I pushed myself because I needed to push myself, and that helped me push myself in other areas of my life. And that's what that program did for me, being there. And then I started going to the gym on the days I wasn't walking or running and just pushing myself. And that's where I think I said this in one of the earlier videos, that motivation is fleeting. You're lucky if you have someone or something to motivate you, but it's not always going to be there. So I had to change that into determination and dedication, because there was a lot of mornings I had that internal struggle in my head. I remember arguing with myself about whether I was getting up to go to the gym or not, because I'd tell myself, you deserve a day off, take one. But I think the big fear for me was, if I took a day off, I might not go back to doing what I need to do, because that's what happened in the past. When I started down a good road, I would take the break, and then the break would turn from one day into two, two to three, three to a week to a month to a year, and then I just wouldn't return. So I pushed myself to the point of exhaustion by staying in the gym 14, 15, 16 days in a row without breaks, and the running too. And then I realized I had to make a compromise and set a schedule, because if I set a schedule, it's not technically taking a break, it's worked in. And I had to kind of trick my mind and rewire my brain into thinking that way. But parts of this program, Bible studies, the chaplainship, the case management, the counseling, and like I said, with this counselor, as I did with my therapist, I made a decision to be completely open and honest, because holding it in was only going to hurt me. It was going to be hanging on to the shame, guilt, resentment, everything that was easy to pull out and use when opportunity arose for a relapse. And walking into my counselor's office, sitting down, I remember she handed me a piece of paper with a line on it that said, timeline. She goes, here, just do a timeline and write down, your story. And I remember joking, saying, I think we might need more paper. Because at this point in time, I had already been writing pages and pages and pages of my story. And that's where the idea for this came from. She had pushed me, saying I should write a book. And then she also said, if I write a book, I need to do an audio book, because I would go in there every week and share bits of my story with her, over 20, 30 minutes of our sessions. And then she pointed out that it's a lot in the way I tell my story, the intonation, all of that, that really adds to the story. So that's where the whole idea for Unlucky, a Memoir, came from. So there's a lot of gratitude there. I remember, I say that a lot, sorry. So one of the gentlemen that came over in that van with me ended up being my roommate. And we ended up being there just about the same amount of time. I think he left a couple weeks before I did. I ended up spending 14 months in this program. But we'll get more into that next week, because I think that's where I'm going to leave off for today. And I want to express my gratitude for the Denver Rescue Mission and everything they have done to help me in my recovery, along with everybody else who's been there for me along the way. We'll get more into that in future episodes. And I want to express my gratitude to you, the viewer, you who follow along and come with me along this journey and listen to my lived experience and my life story. I appreciate each and every one of you. And with that, I'll catch you next week.